Mike, no, and don't try me. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Okay. Ooh. Oh, come on.
Alejandro Mayorkas has named a bipartisan panel now to conduct an independent review of the actions of the Secret Service. This comes amid calls that the director of that agency resign. Kimberly Cheadle is set to testify on Capitol Hill tomorrow. Mr. Trump was injured and one man died. Businesses from airlines to hospitals still working to come back online after a faulty software patch caused a worldwide outage Friday.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. We offer auto, home, and commercial auto insurance, plus a variety of business insurance options. Visit Progressive.com today.
Sorry, but we actually have a wait list for our Monstera.
Shut, Greenhouse is really bringing in the green.
We can't keep snake plants and stuff.
She needs a construction manager to build on her roots and grow.
We could add a whole section for ferns. Here we have dahlias, dahlias, and more dahlias.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Go ahead, feel your engine. Admire that perfectly installed exhaust. Your vehicle's moving along this freeway like it was made from fresh installs and a whole lot of love. With eBay Motors, you get over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
There's a new class of immortals in baseball's Hall of Fame. Erica Hertzkowitz reports.
Among those enshrined, Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, Joe Mauer, and Jim Leland, who was elected as a manager, breaking up 1,769 wins with 4 different teams over 22 years as a skipper.
No matter which Hall of Famer you're here to support today, or which team you cheer for, your presence is always felt.
Leland teared up 3 times when speaking about his years with the Pirates, when speaking about leading Team USA to the gold medal at the 2017 World Baseball Classic, and at the end when he thanked baseball fans everywhere for being the reason baseball exists. Erica Hertzkowitz for CBS News.
A bill to protect children from the harms of social media, gaming sites, and other online platforms appears to have enough bipartisan support to pass Congress. Supporters include parents and pediatrician groups. The last time Congress passed a similar law was in 1998. I'm Heather Bosch, CBS News.
It's 6:05 at the Bay Area's news station KCBS. We are going to see a return of that heat wave in those inland neighborhoods beginning tomorrow and lasting through most of the week. You won't notice at the coast when highs will only reach the mid-60s. That's your relief. Good afternoon. I'm Brett Burkhart. You're listening to continuing coverage of big changes in Washington, D.C. President Biden has pulled out of the 2024 presidential race and has endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. We've been gauging reaction throughout the afternoon for you. Only 107 days until Election Day. Before becoming vice president, Kamala Harris played a crucial role to the Bay Area and California, as she is now being endorsed by President Joe Biden. She was the first person of color elected district attorney of San Francisco, and later the first woman and first African American and the first South Asian American to serve as California Attorney General. She then became the first Indian American and second African American woman ever elected to the U.S. Senate. Breed showed her appreciation toward President Biden and everything he has done for San Francisco. She believes the decision to hand over the baton to Harris was the right one to make, as we hear from San Francisco Mayor London Breed.
I can't think of anyone better to do this job at this time, to bring Democrats together so that we can continue the momentum of moving this country forward. The alternative is detrimental not only to our country, but to our democracy.
Politicians across the nation will be traveling to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. KCBS will be there with our own Doug Sovern. It will take place between August 19th and the 21st. And Mayor London Breed says, well, she's a delegate, so she will be there. In reaction to the president's decision has been coming in from all quarters. One of those who had earlier called for Mr. Biden to step aside is North Bay Congressman Jared Huffman. KCBS's Jeffrey Schaub spoke with him shortly after news broke of the president's announcement.
Huffman joins a number of Democratic members of Congress from the Bay Area supporting Mr. Biden's decision.
This is a must-win election. We were not on a winning trajectory, and it's not President Biden's fault. It's not fair, but he came to realize, I think correctly, that we needed a change at the top of the ticket to reset this race.
Huffman says Harris is the obvious choice to replace Biden at the top of the ticket.
I had pre-endorsed Vice President Harris weeks ago in this scenario, and I'm ready to get out there and pour everything I've got into winning. And I'm also excited about the ticket that we will select here in the weeks ahead. There is so much talent. We have such a deep bench, and Americans have been craving some fresh faces and new choices.
Huffman suggested that Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro or Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer would be good VP choices. Jeffrey Schaub, KCBS.
In the meantime, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer praised the president's decision, saying, quote, his decision was a course not easy, but once again put his country and party and future first, but he refrained from immediately backing Harris. There are others, though, who are coming in and endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as President Biden. Of course, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, among others. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, also a candidate back in 2020, as you know, also came out in support of President, saying he is proud to serve under his leadership, calling him one of the best and most consequential presidents in American history. Governor Gavin Newsom issued a statement shortly after Biden announced his historic decision and later showed his support for Kamala Harris. Stay with KCBS. We want much more reaction. Our Pat Thurston has been gauging it as well. She joins us in just a moment. Right now, Joe Hoskinson has a new crash to tell you about in Antioch.
Yeah, it's going to cause some delays for travelers on the westbound side of 4 getting out of Antioch. This crash right at Contra Loma Boulevard involves a car that first struck the center divide before resting in the left lane, and we do see a backup here forming approaching the Contra Loma exit. In Fremont, this earlier crash is still clearing South 880 at South Mission Boulevard. It involved an overturned car. There were 4 other cars involved here. Some tow trucks are on the way. The left lane is still blocked, so that's why we are still seeing delays on South 880 as you approach the South Mission exit. We are still finding brake lights coming out of Marin County, Sausalito, southbound 101 heading towards the Golden Gate Bridge with brake lights starting right near Alexander Avenue. It looks like we may have had an earlier stall. If you see what might be the problem, you can always call the KCBS Cordell and Cordell phone force line at 415-391-KCBS, and we still see delays in the Santa Cruz Mountains, northbound 17 from the summit to about Lexington Reservoir. Your next update, 6:18 on the traffic leader, KCBS.
Well, the heat's going to return big time for the inland areas next week. Highs tomorrow from the mid-60s at the coast, mid-80s by the bay, up to 102 in those inland areas. We have an 87. That was the warm spot in Santa Rosa. Napa with a 70. San Francisco 59 this hour. San Jose 74. These are updated temperatures. Cloudyville and Half Moon Bay where it's 57. The inland areas will remain in that hot zone through all the way through next Wednesday. And the coast will be mild. Highs in the mid-60s. The bay will heat things up a little bit, mid-80s. And the cooling begins on Thursday with those inland areas settling back into the mid-90s. Traffic and weather together on the 8s on All News 106.9 and AM 740 KCBS.
When back to the office means back in traffic.
We unfortunately have a really bad situation going on in Hayward.
You can rely on your Northern California Honda Dealers Traffic Center.
Traffic is still jammed from Whipple, but I can see it starting to improve now that you have...
From your traffic leader, KCBS. Are you curious about who offers the best deals on top-rated Samsung, LG, and Sony TVs? The answer is surprising. It's not online. And it's not the warehouse clubs. The best deals on top-rated TVs are at Video Only. Don't believe it? Then check out the trade-in deals at Video Only. How about $500 for your old TV?
Incoming call from United States identified by Truecaller. Incoming voice call from Evan Greenman.
It's driving me nuts. It's such a mess. Can Left Coast buyers really buy my property?
Absolutely. We specialize in buying homes just like yours. Whether it's inherited, facing foreclosure, or just too much to handle, we've got you covered.
So I don't have to fix anything up?
Nope, not a thing. We buy houses as is. No matter the condition, you don't need to lift a finger.
What about all the hassle with appraisals and paperwork?
No way. No appraisals needed, and we keep the paperwork minimal. It's super easy and quick with Left Coast Buyers. Call now at 925-490-2000. That's 925-490-2000.
Are there any hidden fees or catches I should know about?
Zero hidden fees or commissions. Left Coast Buyers handles everything, so you won't have any surprises. Call Left Coast Buyers today at 925-490-2000. If you don't get an offer within 24 hours, we'll add $15,000 to your offer. That's 925-490-2000. Don't wait. Call now at 925-490-2000.
You are listening to continuing coverage of the changing presidential campaign. President Biden drops out of the race for re-election. He has now endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. We have you covered on KCBS from reaction around the Bay Area and world leaders. Right now, Pat Thurston has been gauging reaction as well. And what's happening at the White House? You said there is a crowd.
Yeah, there's a crowd. People are gathering in front of the White House. There are just people showing up. You know how people are. They want to express their emotions in some way. And so in this capacity, they're going to the White House because that's where Joe Biden lives and operates these days. So they're carrying signs and they're supporting him and they're telling him, you know, how much they love him and thank you, expressing gratitude. And he's not there. He is at his home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, where he is still recuperating from COVID. And he does intend to address the American people this week. He said that in his initial statement where he announced that he was going to pull back his campaign. North Carolina Democratic delegation has now voted to back Kamala Harris. South Carolina's Democratic delegation has now voted to back Harris. So we're looking at these delegates who were appointed in order to support Joe Biden at the convention, and now a lot of them are becoming delegates for Kamala Harris already, even today. I think it's a big deal. The nation's 6 black state attorneys general has thrown their support behind Vice President Harris. They made a statement on X. They laid out her qualifications. She said she has staunchly defended our right to choose and preserved our most sacred right to vote. There's no one more qualified to lead and continue to uphold the values of our great nation, close quote. The statement listed Letitia James, Kwame Raoul, Anthony Brown, Andrea Campbell, Keith Ellison, and Aaron Ford. They're from Nevada, Minnesota, Massachusetts, Maryland, Illinois, and New York. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper said Kamala Harris has what it takes to defeat Donald Trump, promised a campaign on her behalf. Cooper and Harris both served as former state attorneys general for North Carolina and California, respectively. California Governor Gavin Newsom said nobody's better to prosecute the case against Donald Trump's dark vision and guide our country in a healthier direction than America's vice president. Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania governor, those two are interesting because I don't think Gavin Newsom can become her running mate. Josh Shapiro is right up there along with Gretchen Whitmer as the potential vice presidential running mate.
And don't you think that they would want somebody from a swing state?
Yeah, since he's from Pennsylvania, that's one of the reasons that he would be a good candidate. Gretchen Whitmer, though, Michigan, right? Gretchen Whitmer is also very powerful in Michigan. And so it would be fascinating to have 2 women on a ticket when no woman has ever won the presidency before, and she's the first woman to win the vice presidency. But there are a lot of women who are very supportive of that, and there are a lot of men, too, because these are very strong women. Gretchen Whitmer is no pushover. So this would be an absolutely fascinating ticket. The chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Nanette Barragan, spoke with Kamala Harris today, said that she wants to forego a virtual roll call for the nomination process and instead hold a process that adheres to regular order. That means the convention takes us all the way back to the Ohio thing and what's going on there, and I don't have an answer for that yet. I put in a call to David Katz to see if he could sort through the law and tell us what his opinion is. Would the Republicans have a case to stop her name going on the ballot? As a very last resort, I went and looked at their laws, and apparently they do allow write-in candidates for the President of the United States. But that's hard because most people won't. They'll look at the ballot, they'll see the blank there, and they're not going to write something in. They're going to vote for whoever's name is printed on that ballot.
And David Katz, again, is a former federal prosecutor?
He's a former federal prosecutor. He's now a criminal defense attorney, but he can read the law, and he can help us understand it. Although, apparently it's not cut and dry. There are people, Democrats actually, who have appeared on some of the, cable shows, And they're of two different opinions. They're of the opinion, oh no, Secretary of State says it's okay not to have your candidate announced all the way up until September 1st. And others are saying, no, this is flawed, and the Republicans actually have a case to make here. If it goes to litigation, Brett, I mean, litigation takes time. That's something we do not have.
Yeah, although we have heard from legal experts who say this will no doubt, be high, take the speedy route when it comes to litigation.
Right. They put it on a fast track to try to get something resolved about it.
Yeah.
But what if
when
they
you have a
say
deadline
no?
Like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And leading up to the end of the Republican convention in Milwaukee, we were hearing from our own Doug Sovereign about how the Trump camp did not want Biden to drop out.
They did not.
No, and so in the reaction that you're seeing from the Trump camp is really indicative of that fear of having to go against somebody else other than President Joe Biden.
It is indicative of that. It is also because what they were planning with Biden was to attack his mental acuity. That was the whole thing. So it was indicative of that. It also was indicative of they've done this whole plan. They've got all these ads in the can that they're ready to use against Joe Biden. Now they have to switch gears. They have to spend money they didn't think they were going to have to spend in order to do the Oppo research and in order to put together the kind of ad campaign, because it'll be negative. So it'll be an ad campaign that is attacking Kamala Harris if she's the nominee, whoever the nominee is. I think they'd rather have Harris than, say, Whitmer or Newsom, because they've got some ideas. They've got some research on her already. I don't think they've done very much on Newsom or Whitmer at all. So, they're kind of caught a little bit with their pants down. That rally.
Well, what we're hearing online and in social media is the attacks starting against Kamala Harris, unfortunately. And logistically speaking, because she has been endorsed as a possible nominee, thank you, she gets access to all the campaign cash that Biden raised.
No, she doesn't. No, the way that works, because I've been looking at this.
I know.
There are some people who say that because she's already on the ticket, that she can simply take over that money. And now they've changed their whole campaign apparatus to be the Harris campaign. But that doesn't give her that campaign cash. That was donated to Joe Biden as the person who was campaigning to be president. That with him pulling out, that then means that that person is no longer a viable candidate. So there are only certain things you can do with that money. He doesn't get to keep it. He doesn't get to take everybody out to dinner. There are only certain things you can do with it, and he may be able to transfer it to the nominee. He may not, and Republicans say that they're going to sue to stop that from happening too. But what they absolutely positively can do is they can simply transfer the money to the DNC. And that's probably the wisest thing to do. It would be the fastest thing to do, and the DNC can simply transfer right into Harris's coffers if she's the nominee, and there's problem solved for litigation.
Well, we have Pat Thurston in the house. She is checking reaction all around the Bay Area and beyond, and she will join us again later this hour. You're listening to continuing coverage of the presidential earthquake in Washington, D.C. President Biden pulling out of the 2024 race, endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris. Joe Hoskinson has you covered on your travels around the Bay Area.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of calls on the phone for us. Paul, for instance, dialing 415-391-KCBS to let us know about this crash in Roner Park, northbound 101, North 101 at Santa Rosa Avenue.
Incoming call from United States identified by Truecaller. Incoming voice call from Evan Greenman. Incoming voice call from Evan Greenman. Incoming voice call from Evan Greenman.
Sausalito, we are looking at delays here getting off the Golden Gate Bridge, southbound 101 from the Robin Williams Tunnel. Once you're on the bridge, though, you are looking good. And the Bay Bridge, we do find delays on the upper deck starting just beyond the island. It's a slow ride on West 80 into San Francisco to just past the Fremont Street exit. Your next update, 628 on the traffic leader, KCBS.
Well, we are breezy this afternoon, but prepare yourself because we had a nice break this weekend, and the heat is going to return to the inland areas next week. Highs tomorrow from the mid-60s at the coast to mid-80s by the bay, up to 102 in the inland areas. The inland area is going to remain in that hot zone all the way through next Wednesday. The Coast will be mild with highs in the mid-60s. The Bay heating up at least a little bit to the mid-80s, and the cooling begins on Thursday for those inland areas, settling back into the mid-90s. We have traffic and weather together on the 8s on All News 106.9 and AM 740 KCBS.
This is Chris Dolan.
And I'm Vanessa Denison, senior attorney from the Dolan Law Firm. Chris, what's with all these out-of-town personal injury firms coming into the Bay Area with these catchy jingles and funny names?
Unlike the Dolan Law Firm, most of these firms are from out of state or in LA.
The Dolan Law Firm is headquartered right here in San Francisco, going on 30 years.
We live here, we work here, we win here. The Dolan Law Firm, we're the best lawyers we hope you'll never need. DolanLawFirm.com.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Granger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done. We have continuing coverage of the big change in the presidential race. As President Joe Biden bows out of the race for re-election, he instead is endorsing Oakland's own Vice President Kamala Harris. And joining us with the very latest is Mark Sandalo, our KCBS political analyst. Mark, thank you so much for your time on a Sunday.
Good evening, Brett.
Yeah, just go ahead and give us your reaction. We knew this was on the horizon, possibly. The drumbeat was growing louder through the whole Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. And then to hear it now, and to see it in the headlines, and see it online, what's your reaction?
Of course, it's remarkable, but people the last week were asking whether or not this was going to happen or not. And it seemed like it was inevitable, because how do you turn back from this? How do you turn back from 3 dozen members of your own party in Congress saying you ought to step down? How do you step back from, the debate performance? It's one thing if people give you time, but they didn't. And you can't go back and say, well, he did seem a little, but you know what? Let's rally around him anyway. Once the horse was out of the gate, or whatever the analogy was, it didn't seem like it was possible to turn back. And perhaps the biggest development then today was, one, the timing of it. It happened very abruptly, and 2, that he has thrown his full weight behind, Kamala Harris. And the question then emerges: not only is America ready for a woman as president, a woman of color, but a San Francisco Democrat of all things.
And I know a lot of President Biden supporters are trying to focus on his legacy, although we are seeing more endorsements of Vice President Kamala Harris. But I'm curious to get your opinion about this next question. That is, what does it say about a sitting president stepping aside for what is his party's call for the greater good?
Clearly, if this is for that greater good, and of course there's a lot of cynicism. I mean, Brett, it seems very, very noble in a way that, his main cause, so he says, is to make sure that Donald Trump was not president. And apparently he was convinced over the last several weeks that him staying in the race made it more likely that Donald Trump would be president. And so he had to step aside. That said, we don't know what goes on the inside. I mean, if what we saw, that debate performance of his, and then some of the appearances afterwards, if that's the real Joe Biden, I mean, if he really is struggling to complete sentences that way, then it's not, then it's a much easier question. It's not a tough choice for him. I mean, he's 81 years old, and I can't imagine, I'm still decades away from being his age, sadly not that many, but I can't imagine putting in the 80 to 100-hour weeks that he has to do day in and day out. It's very possible that an 81-year-old would look at this and say, can I really do this when I'm 83, when I'm 84, when I'm 85? And I guess you would have thought he might have come to that conclusion earlier than 100 days before the election.
If there were any other presidential race without President Trump, would Biden step aside, do you think?
I think Biden would have stepped aside long before for that. I mean, I think Biden sees himself, and again, we're relying on public. I haven't had conversations with him. Very few people have. And when he does have conversations with the media, he knows it's going public. So we don't exactly know what goes through his mind. But from everything he has suggested, he saw Donald Trump as a unique threat to America. and he beat him once. That's what got him back in the race was deciding, and that's what got him in the race back in 2020 was he had to stop Donald Trump from winning again, and he saw himself as uniquely able to do that again. And